Thanks for listening to Creative Control. While I have you here, please consider supporting Youth Empowerment and Support Services, otherwise known as YES. Based in Edmonton, Alberta, YES provides immediate and low-barrier overnight and day shelter, temporary supportive housing, and individualized wraparound supports for young people aged 15 to 24. They work collaboratively within a network of care focused on the prevention of youth homelessness by providing youth with the necessary supports to stabilize their housing, improve their well-being, build life skills, connect with community, and avoid re-entry into homelessness. Learn more about how to donate or otherwise support YES by visiting yess.org.
Hey, this is Adam from Toronto, and I support Creative Control because Vish is full stop one of the best arts interviewers in Canada, or anywhere in the world, really. He approaches every episode like he's known the artist for years, creating a conversational atmosphere that gets straight to the heart of the work. No one else in podcasting gets it quite right like he does, with a mixture of meticulous research, wise artistic insights, and well-humored personal connections. I proudly support Vish and Creative Control on Patreon. You should too.
To make your flexible monthly donation to Creative Control, please visit patreon.com/creativecontrol today.
Tommy Stinson is a legendary musician, songwriter, and singer currently based in Hudson, New York. Originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Stinson first came to prominence as a founding member and bassist in the underground rock and roll band The Replacements, whose debut album, Sorry Ma, Forgot to Take Out the Trash, was released in 1981 when Stinson was just shy of his 15th birthday. After that band's initial run ended in 1991, Stinson went on to start relatively short-lived bands like Bash and Pop and Perfect, before joining Guns N' Roses for a 16-year stint on bass starting in 1998, which kind of coincided with his lengthy membership in Soul Asylum as well. Stinson has also tended to a solo career, reunited with both The Replacements and Bash and Pop in the past decade, and he currently plays with Chip Roberts in Tommy Stinson's Cowboys in the Campfire, whose lovely new album, Wronger, was released by Cobra Side on June 2nd, 2023. Now, on September 22nd, 2023, Rhino Records released Tim, Let It Bleed Edition, a wonderful new remix and box set celebrating the Replacements' beloved 1985 album, Tim. Meanwhile, Tommy Stinson's Cowboys in the Campfire have a string of Canadian dates, bringing them to cities in Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Ontario between October 1st and 13th. And so, with all this activity, Tommy and I reconnected for a nice talk about Cowboys in the Campfire's origin story and his friendship with Chip Roberts, working with John Doe from X, who he's known since the Replacements opened shows for X in the early 80s, why the Bob Dylan Center might be located in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I mean, it is located there, but the story about why. And why Stinson admires Dylan for being a musical messenger. Writing his song Having Fun during the sessions for Tim by The Replacements and how he feels about it being released now. His thoughts about both Tim and the recent series of Replacements box sets. Writing songs about modern times. Touring Canada, other future plans, and much more. A part of the Entertainment One Network with the support of listeners like you who follow and subscribe to this donor-driven podcast and spread the word about it, and make flexible monthly donations at patreon.com/creativecontrol. That's the primary source of revenue for all of the work that goes into this podcast every week. So if you can support the show on Patreon, first of all, thank you. Second of all, please do. With additional support from Blackbird Music, a wonderful record store with locations in Edmonton and Calgary, Alberta, and friendly people who work there will happily help you look for whatever it is you're looking for in those bricks and mortar locations. Or you can order stuff online and they'll ship it right to your house at their website, blackbird.ca. Say you want to order Tommy Stinson's Cowboys in the Campfire record, Wronger, or this new Replacements box set, Tim, Let It Bleed edition. Just go to blackbird.ca, type in what you're looking for, and sure enough, I'm sure they'll have it, and they'll ship it right to your house. It's just that simple. Again, learn more about this record store at blackbird.ca. Plus in-kind support from Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, Ontario, and Grandad's Donuts in Hamilton, Ontario. This is episode 804 of Creative Control, featuring the lovely and talented Tommy Stinson, with your host, me, Vish Khanna. Hey, Tommy, how's it going?
It's going. I got my cup of coffee going here. I got a mic happening. It's all happening.
Nice. It's nice to have you back on the show. An honor to speak with you again. First of all, where in the world are you?
I'm back home. I'm back in Hudson, New York.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, welcome home. You were just off the tour you were on. Is that correct?
Correct. We got home, what's today? Monday. We got home Saturday night. And, yeah, and we're just kind of getting my bearings before I come to Canada in 2 days.
Well, listen, it's going to be great to have you back. How was your tour?
It was good. We had a lot of fun. You know, we ran into some really great people and interesting venues and stuff like that, which is kind of the way it works for me right now. Mm-hmm. And, yeah, we had fun. It was good. I'm inspired. Like, I came home and we're already starting to work on some new material for, other things, new record and that kind of stuff. So that's a good sign.
Wow, that's amazing. That happened quickly. This is with your collaborator, Chip?
Chip Roberts. Yeah, he's my buddy. We've been collaborating now for about 15 years. And, so far so good.
That's wonderful. I saw some clips from your tour on various social media platforms. It seemed very intimate. When I listened to this wonderful record, Wronger. Am I saying that correctly? Am I pronouncing that right? Wronger?
That's correct. Doesn't get more wrong than that.
Is there a wrong way to pronounce Wronger? Wronger. It doesn't roll off
really.
The tongue. I
think you got it.
Thank you. There's an intimacy to both the clips I've seen and the material here. Where do you suppose that kind of comes from, that approach to doing things in a relatively stark manner, I suppose?
Well, for us, it all kind of started from, writing together. So we wrote some stuff, originally started writing stuff on a record I'd done years ago called One Man Mutiny. Mm-hmm. We wrote some stuff on that. We wrote some stuff on the second Bash and Pop record that I'd done that came out in 2017. And it just seemed natural that we would do our own thing, but we wanted to do it as a duo. And we wanted to keep it real simple and tour simply, me and acoustic guitar, him with electric, and kind of, do a thing that was a duo. And as we went along and started recording, we realized that some of the songs really wanted other instrumentation on them. The songs kind of dictate where they go and always have for me. Mm-hmm. And so, we put together a more intimate record with some other instrumentation to augment what we were doing as a duo. And I think if we had done a duo record, I think we would have been selling ourselves short, because I think in terms of translating what we were doing, for a full-length record, I think as a duo would be asking a lot of the listener to use their imagination, I think. So we filled it in where it felt necessary and that kind of thing. And now we've added Chops LeConte on bass, who also played on the record. And it's interesting, We've been touring a bit and getting kind of more into the threesome version of this thing with upright bass, and now I've gotten inspired to write for that in a way, because you can utilize upright bass as a percussive instrument as well as getting some low end out of it in a way that is interesting to me. And I'm like, okay, so this is a new way of doing things and approaching things, and I just got inspired by it as we're literally writing stuff, in hotel rooms on our travels this last run. So it's been fun.
That sounds cool. One of the catchiest songs in your catalog for me is the title track from that Bash and Pop album you talked about, Anything Could Happen. I'll tell you, Tommy, every once in a while in my life, still, since that record came out, I'll just start humming or singing the chorus to myself. It really, and that's something you worked on with Chip as well. Is that correct?
He came in with that guitar melody, that guitar riff at the top of that, and I said, hold on. And we wrote that song literally in about a half an hour.
Oh, wow. It's a lovely song.
It came together real quick, and it was really inspirational how it, we fell together. I don't think he liked me taking his riff that he came up with and then making him come up with a counter melody. I don't think he liked that part so much, but he came around.
Yeah. Well, it's a lovely song, and it's a super sort of charged up song. So it's interesting to me that your next venture together was a two-person, more intimate configuration, as I mentioned. Do you have any insight as to why you wanted to go a little quiet? I know it's easier on the road and whatnot, but any reason why?
That's the whole rub right there. It is low maintenance. When you got two people just feeding off of each other, you don't have four people trying to sound like they're playing together in a particular way. And it worked out good for us for a while, to the point where, we were getting into doing it. But then, as I said, we kind of found ourselves in need one of kind of upping our game a little bit. And I wanted some backup vocals, which Shop has provided as well. Yeah. We needed that. And we thought, we could also use an extra driver, because I don't drive. I don't have a license. I never did. And so it worked out. And now we're, like I said, we're up in the game and like getting inspired to write some new material accordingly.
I was looking at your upcoming Canadian dates, and I recognize most of the venues you're playing across the eastern part of Canada, it looks like. But as I say, when I look at some of these clips, you seem to be playing a lot of alternative spaces. Is that a fair assessment? Like people's houses, things like that?
Yeah. And that comes by the design of... These days, a lot of the clubs, small clubs here in the States anyway, has shuttered since COVID, unfortunately. And then the other end of that is, with so much traffic out there right now, you literally have to book what little clubs there are out there still that would be, appropriate for us. You have to book those a year or so in advance. And I don't know what I want to do next week, let alone a year from now. And so these work good for us in that we can kind of go, hey, how about, in 2 months from now, it's still summer break, my kid's off with her mom. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. And it just works better for us to do it sort of last minute. It's low maintenance. We have a lot of fun with it. They're more intimate. But the reality is we're still promoting a record accordingly, and we're pretty much playing to the same people we would be anyway. We're just not playing it in a, vomit-ridden nightclub.
Is it that kind of refreshing for you to not have to deal with a vomit-ridden nightclub?
I've done everything. I've played everywhere, been everywhere, and as Bono once said, it's been all over me. And I just kind of think, to quote him anyway, I just kind of think I like different things. I like switching it up. I have a curiosity about me about doing things any different way. I could do the same thing everyone's doing, or I could do it my way, and I choose to do it my way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it seems to be working out. These songs are great. You alluded to the fact that you and Chip have known each other 15 years. Is that what you said?
Yes. So I got married to a woman who is his niece, Emily Roberts. We had a baby together, and he and I became fast friends upon meeting each other, so much so that he was sort of retired from the guitar playing when I met him, and I dragged him out of it and quickly lubed up them joints for some guitar playing shenanigans.
Okay, so it's a family sort of affair on some level.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so you began working on these songs together in fits and starts over the last 15 years, is that right?
Yeah, bits and pieces. Like I said, we worked on that One Man Mutiny record together and the Bash and Pop record. And what we started doing sometime around 2014, 15 era, kind of before the Replacements reunion and after, we just realized at one point we had nothing going on in this particular summer, and we just said let's get in the van and go play some shows somewhere. Yeah. And we literally did that, and we filmed ourselves doing it. I put a GoPro in the window of in the windshield of the van. It just filmed some of us just kind of just goofing off, making comments about goofy crap we were seeing on the road. We just kind of had fun with it, and we ended up. What really ended up being the sort of the nucleus of the record to begin with was we ended up going to Austin, Texas, right around the time that John Doe had moved there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And at the same time, my friend Christine Smith was running a studio down there. And it just seemed like, well, heck, we're coming to town. I called up John and said, what are you doing? You want to come play some bass on some tunes we got? And he said, sure. So he came to the studio with an upright bass that I don't think he'd ever recorded with anyone before. I don't think he'd ever played upright bass on a record before or with anyone before, per se.
Yeah.
So it was exciting for him, us, and we had a blast recording the first 5 songs of the record, which would be We Ain't, Mr. Wrong, Karma's Bitch, Hey Man, and one other one I'm blanking on right now.
Yeah. And now, if memory serves, you would have had a long relationship with John in some ways, because the Replacements and X would play shows together, or is that right?
We started opening up for X in the early 80s.
Yeah.
I mean, John Doe has been a friend of mine for nearly 40 years.
Oh, nice.
And a very dear friend. I love the man.
Yeah, he's
such a good dude.
He's the best. I actually had a weird thing a year ago where I went down to Tulsa, Oklahoma for like the grand opening of the Bob Dylan Center, and he was there. And then...
no kidding.
Yeah.
That's cool. You're the second person that talked to me about that. Peter Jesperson was telling me about that whole thing and how cool it was.
Oh, it's great. If you ever get down there, if you can get down there, I recommend it. If you're a fan, even if you're not a fan, it's just they've just done a really inspiring job with that center. But my point is, the week before that, I believe it was, I traveled back to Ontario, where I'm from originally, for a memorial for Dallas Good of the Sadies. And John Doe was there as well. So I took 2 trips for the first time in years. John Doe was in both cities. I thought that was odd. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. Wow, that's strange enough. I just don't understand why Bob Dylan's museum is in Oklahoma.
Well, there's I'll get into it real quick. There's like a family down there, and they put together the Woody Guthrie Center. Down in that area there, and they're called the Kaiser family, I believe. If I'm just riffing here, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but they're called the Kaiser family, and they do a lot of charitable work, and they're philanthropists, and one of their goals is to inspire young people to get into music. And they view people like Woody and Mr. Dylan as prime examples of what's possible if you use your imagination. So that Bob Dylan Center is not simply a sort of a museum for Bob Dylan paraphernalia and writing and all that sort of stuff, which, by the way, it's amazing just to be around that kind of stuff. It is really meant, in their reckoning, to inspire young people to show them what's possible if you use your imagination. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. So that's why
Yeah.
that's why they're just wealthy people in Oklahoma. And I think that's the way to put it, and it's wonderful. Again, have you ever been? You've surely been to Tulsa. Have you been there lately?
I have not been there lately.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I'm telling you, I'm not trying to tell you your business, Tommy. If you can book a tour and get down there, tell you what, I'll get you in. I know some people. I can get you in. You get a tour. I'll get your whole band, whatever you want. I've done it already once, and I'll help you if you want.
Very cool. Well, that sounds fantastic. I'd love to check that out sometime.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful.
We'll make a pilgrimage.
That's wonderful. Now, I was thinking about some of these songs on this record, Wronger, and for example, you alluded to Mr. Wrong, and they seem, some of them, very tender, very biting. These seem to be captured. Did you write most of the lyrics for these songs?
I wrote all the lyrics to these songs.
Wrote all the lyrics. So Chip's contribution is musical, I suppose.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Do you have a sense of maybe where your mindset was at when you were writing some of these songs? And do you agree with my assessment? Tender, sort of angry at the same time?
Yeah, you get a little bit of both in there. I mean, once in a while, Chip will throw out a nugget that's like a phrase or a song title that we'll run with. But for the most part, I write all the lyrics, and there's. I write, first person, second person, third person. I often pull from my experiences, but also experiences I see with other people's and things like that. I like to try and include everyone. So I figure if I add anecdotes from other, relationships I witness or see, I figure that kind of draws people in a little bit, where it's not just all about me, as I'm not really a songwriter that, really thinks what I'm doing and gotten into is all that interesting. But when you add the little bit I got and the other stuff I see around me, I guess it makes more of an interesting, in my mind, it makes more of an interesting story.
They're just really wonderful songs. I was walking around listening to them in the last week, and I just really want to commend you on them. And a really great storytelling. One of the stories that stuck out for me and caught my wife's attention this morning was the song Karma's Bitch. Do you mind, just for those who haven't heard it yet, can you share a little bit about the background of that particular song?
Yeah. Chip had told me this story of a gentleman we passed. We were in Maryland, where he used to have him and his wife and his family used to have a little home. It was a little beach community kind of vibe, although it wasn't really on the beach. It was in the on the Chesapeake down in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And it's a little community where people ride around in golf carts and stuff, and they kind of it's just kind of a party community for older folks, really, is what it is. But we're cruising around on a golf cart one day, and he goes, "See that guy right there?" And he told me the story about this guy who was dating this woman that he broke up with and started dating the woman's daughter, and the daughter died of alcoholism. She died just completely, just drank herself to death. Told me this. It's a terrible story, but he goes, that's that guy right there. That's what the story's about. And like, whoa. So we wrote the song, and here it is.
I don't mean to chuckle. It's very morbid.
Totally. That's not a good story, but he told me it, and whether it's true or not is up for debate. But I kind of think it does come from a factual.
Is that unusual for you to take fodder from like an anecdote like that, as opposed to drawing from your own experience?
When telling stories, we all have artistic license, and I took artistic license on that one. It was based on a true story. I added a few of my own. I interjected my own, thoughts into what I thought this man's life might have been like, I suppose, a little bit.
Yeah.
As we saw him sitting on his front porch, basically. So,
yeah.
That's how we do.
No, it's true. We were talking about Bob Dylan and Woody Guthrie earlier. Two gentlemen who took some artistic license for sure, and continue to, I suppose. And that's the way it works. I guess I was listening to this Replacements reissue for Tim, which I want to talk to you about in a moment. But in particular, it's striking to me because one of your own songs, Having Fun, is present here, and Paul sings it. Paul Westerberg sings it, and it's great. In the context of what we were just talking about, I wonder about your songwriting practice these days, and how it's evolved. First of all, is Having Fun one of the earliest songs you wrote?
Yeah, it was certainly among the first things I ever wrote. And, back then, when we were in the Replacements, early on, Paul was always very supportive of, hey, if you got a song idea, man, we'll do it. Let's do it. Yeah. He was not, sitting there saying, hey, we're only going to do my songs, that kind of thing. So he was real supportive, which really, I think, was really helpful in me getting the bug.
Yeah.
I think, I watched him and, played his songs and learned a lot from him and Peter Jesperson's influence on all of us with, cool music and stuff like that. So that's kind of where it all started for me.
Now, again, it's, the band was prolific, but this box set suggests there's a lot of stuff, and some of the reissues, and over the years, just stuff is starting to come out from various sessions. This song, Having Fun, never seen the light of day, really. This version, I should say, until now. Is that correct?
Correct. Not that it should have necessarily. The jury's out on that. So these box sets, I'll just be honest with you, they're the stuff that we as the band find cringeworthy, if you will. Raw stuff, unfinished stuff, or alternate takes and stuff like that. We find that stuff real cringeworthy, but in the grand scheme of things, to the Uber fan and stuff like that, it tells a bigger story. It helps tell the bigger story of where things were and gives you a bigger picture. So we kind of reluctantly go along with that process. I don't think I think if you were asked Paul about it, I think he'd be like, I don't want to talk about it. To have alternate stuff. But, again, for the fan that wants to see a bigger picture of how that record was made, it tells a bigger story, and I think it's cool. I mean, again, it's cringeworthy for us because you're hearing raw stuff that maybe, there's a reason it didn't make the record,
Well, what is your... I appreciate that a lot. I will say, as a fan, some of the stuff you guys find cringeworthy, someone like me finds utterly fascinating and insightful. I mean, the various versions of Can't Hardly Wait on this box set, a song that's not even on the album, Tim. I mean, some of them move me. I don't want to gush too much or get too emo, but some of these alternate takes move me, like in ways that they surprise me. As you listen back, it sounds like obviously your relationship with this stuff is going to be different. Good and bad memories are going to probably come flooding back when you hear some of these things. Let's go back to Having Fun for just a moment, though, because I'd never heard this before, and Paul singing it. It sounds like it could have been on the record. Do you have any sense memory of what inspired you to write that song in particular?
Not really. I was starting to kind of, get my bearings about playing guitar at that time. And, was just kind of, I started to get the bug of writing my own stuff. I mean, it started early on for me. I mean, really, for all practical purposes, Bob was writing songs, Chris was writing songs. We were all kind of writing songs. But, Paul was the one that was taking it more seriously and it was more in the driver's seat of that. Yeah. And for obvious reasons. But at that time, it was like, and I said this in the interview the other day, it's like I was just kind of getting my bearings about me. So I was starting to also listen to a lot of singer-songwriter stuff and a lot of different things that I was pulling from inspiration. And, at that time, too, we'd already gone through the whole, Big Star catalog at that point and all got, fascinated with all that. Yeah. And, and other stuff of that nature, like we'd gotten past all the, the rock and roll, punk rocky stuff. We're getting more into the singer-songwriter elements of things we're taking it more seriously, basically. Yeah. As I was 19 years old, taking things seriously musically at that point was a kind of a big step.
Yeah. Yeah. So you present the song to Paul and the band. They're into it. You cut it. It's done. How exciting is that for you as a 19-year-old?
It was cool to do it. It was a great feeling. It was obvious quickly that it wasn't going to make the record, and for obvious reasons and that, But again, the cool thing about it was that Paul was really supportive of that. Yeah. And so much so that he was willing to sing it even. Yeah. So, I can't emphasize that enough, that was a really important step in our relationship and us as a band moving forward. Yeah. Paul was the leader of the band for obvious reasons, but he really was very supportive in that way. And that's, if he'd been a dick about it and been like, that just sucks or whatever, and didn't want to say it, that might have actually, at my young age, it might have thwarted me from actually writing. It might have turned me away from it even. Yeah. But because he was supportive, I grew from that.
You say for obvious reasons, Having Fun it wasn't going to make the record. For those of us listening to it, sorry, Tommy, it might not be as obvious. Can you elaborate? Like, what was obvious about it not making the cut, so to speak?
I think we had better material, simply put. Okay. We had better material to put on the record.
Does Tim stand out for you as a particularly great album for the Replacements?
Funny enough, it doesn't. Some of the songs on there do. But as a record as a whole, it was a really hard record to make because of what my brother was going through and what we were going through because of that. Yeah. And it shows. You can hear all this extra stuff and you can kind of hear what was going on a little bit better. And so, we eked it out really, It wasn't like, we got our bearings, I think, together more around Pleased to Meet Me when we knew Bob wasn't going to be there anymore. Right. So it's just the three of us forging on with Slim. Yeah. It took us a second to kind of get into that mode, but I think the material evolved in that way with us growing and evolving as artists as well. So,
Yeah, I feel like the narrative is that, or I mean, for those of us who weren't there and weren't obviously you guys, the narrative would be like, oh, this was an exciting transitional time for the band. But in truth, you were really mired in uncertainty. Is that a fair way of looking at it?
Completely.
Yeah. And do you feel like that pensiveness comes through on Tim?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like I said, we kind of eked that record out. It was not an easy fit to finish that baby. And, here comes a regular on that really kind of tells the whole story in a way,
Yeah.
Where things were.
Yeah. Okay, well, listen, I appreciate those insights. I want to get back to your songwriting a little bit. So you bring having fun to the band, and that, as you say, Paul, Peter Jesperson, people were supportive. How often do you start writing songs from that point forward, and how does your practice work these days? Because these songs you wrote for this record, the Wronger record, are really fantastic, and I just wonder about, we've talked about how seriously things started to get in terms of how the band took its practice around Tim. But for yourself, did writing having fun, having it accepted even internally, did that kickstart stuff for you as a songwriter?
Oh, totally. Like I said, like if Paul had been a dick about it and anyone had been negative about me doing anything, I probably, at that young age, I probably would have, been thwarted from actually pursuing it,
Yeah.
But because everyone was supportive of it, it, kept me going. And by the time we broke up and I'd already had most of that first Bash and Pop record written, I was kind of on my way.
Yeah. And so how often are you writing these days? Do you write in batches? Do you sit down and do a bunch, or is it just whenever it comes to you?
Whenever it comes to me, like we were on the road just, this last couple of weeks, and things were coming to me as we were traveling and, working as a three-piece and getting inspired by the notion of that. And, it kind of comes when it kind of comes, just like that. It just comes out of the blue.
Yeah. Last time you were on the show, I got some messages from listeners and fans of yours saying, wow, I've never heard Tommy talk so much about kind of social issue type stuff. I guess politics came up. To be honest with you, Tommy, I haven't revisited that conversation in a while, but it did, as I thought about some of the songs on this new record, some of the songs on this record seem to reflect America today. You just went on tour. How are you feeling about your country? How does it feel to be on the road and meeting with people? What's the kind of mood, would you say, if you could characterize it?
In general, we're older gentlemen. We take stock in what we see happening and what we witness on our travels. And what is happening all over the country is also happening in a sort of a micro way where I live right now in Hudson, New York. The struggle between the haves and the have-nots, and where I live right now, finding affordable housing for people who actually are the worker bees in my little neighborhood, whether you work at a restaurant or a shop or CVS pharmacy even. Those jobs are hard to fill right now because people can't afford to live here for $20 an hour.
Yeah.
And this is happening all over the country, and we can't help but talk to people about it. We see it, we witness it, and we try to figure out, well, what do we do? How can we do it? Because it affects our lives too.
Yeah.
It affects the housing market up here like it does in other places all over the country. So you can't help but get kind of inspired to try and do something because it is a major, major issue. And when you take the disparity between the haves and have-nots, and you really mess with, the human equality. I don't even want to talk about the racial equality, human equality amongst things as well as racial equality. You can't help right now but to just kind of go, God, this is so messed up,
Yeah.
And we really feel it, we're blue collar dudes. I mean, we all come from. My mom was a bartender my whole life, and I know I grew up when they desegregated schools in the late '70s. That's when I was you bust all over Minneapolis. That it was and I remember it very well, and And how that translates to me now as a 56-year-old man, I'm just kind of looking around, just going, man, this is untenable. And I got 2 kids myself, a 34-year-old and a 15-year-old that have to live in this, when I'm gone. And you can't help but want to do something.
There's a trick to conveying such thoughts and ideas artfully without being heavy-handed. A song on the new record like "Hey Man," I think does that. It's talking about socio-political issues, but in a pretty light way. As you ponder, I gather from this recent tour you were inspired to write.
Yes.
Things you experienced, maybe things you heard, got you writing. Is any of the stuff you just discussed starting to permeate these new songs you're working on?
Of course. It always does.
Yeah.
It always does. What I see and witness and sits in the back of my brain until it comes out of my mouth. And, some people say, getting politically involved as an artist is taboo. Bob Dylan really didn't do it so overtly, although his songs talked about social inequality and things like that.
Yeah.
He didn't take a side personally and literally in the public eye. And I understand that, and I can't really quite do that. As I say that, I am a centrist. I believe that both sides have their place, and it helps to make a great democracy. But when you see one side totally just being completely, outrageous in their thinking and misinformed and preying on people that are that don't know better, and selling them bullshit stories and this kind of thing that's happening here.
Yeah.
You can't help but react to that.
Yeah. You mentioned Bob Dylan as someone who was able to write such songs without coming across as taking a side. I think having that ability to talk about heavy stuff, but in a way where you don't feel like it's dogma, I suppose. And, and
he's a great messenger for social issues that were happening without having to vocalize his side.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. I try to do that in my writing. I don't want to pound home the negativity of it or, take a side per se. Because like I said, I'm a centrist. And I think, though, that it's important that we all be involved and really all get involved in taking care of one another. I mean, geez, I'm not even religious in any way, but damn, the Bible says, man, we're all created equal and we all, have a place here. And I just think that's how I grew up.
You grew up with Paul Westerberg, and I feel like as I am listening to, you mentioned Here Comes a Regular. If you listen to songs like Left of the Dial, Bastards of Young, Swingin' Party even, I feel like these same ideas, these universal experiences are a part of those songs. Like what's kind of going on in the culture, in my community, those things shine through in those songs, but I don't feel like he gets enough, you guys, in fact, got enough credit for writing songs that really spoke to what a lot of us I was young at the time, but what a lot of people are going through. What do you make of that? Do you feel like he doesn't get, again, all of you, do you feel like, I think the replacements get sort of lumped into like, oh, they were fun and they didn't care about anything, that kind of stuff. But these songs on Tim that I mentioned, I think speak to the same thing we're talking about to some extent. Would you agree?
I do. I mean, we were outcasts. I mean, straight up, we were total outcasts and social misfits, really. But one thing that I do know that I get from people all over the world about what we've done is it really is most poignant in the song Androgynous.
Yes.
I still have people coming up to me, straight, queer, otherwise, all over the LGBTQ spectrum, that song really means something to them. And, to think of Paul writing that so early in his life is a huge thing. It's a great, and I remember when I was a kid, right around that time, I used to take the buses all over Minneapolis to get around because I don't drive. And I remember I'd be talking to all kinds of people on the bus, gay people that I had a couple different friends that I'd often be on the same bus line with, going downtown to rehearse and stuff like that. And I never thought twice about any of it. They just were people to me. And I never had that thing, that people have, where they're afraid of black people, or they're afraid of gay people, or it's, God, I don't want my kid to be gay. I never had any of that stuff in my head. My mom, like I said, was a bartender my whole life. She dealt with everybody, and so we grew up that way.
Yeah.
We kind of, we were not racists. We were not, bigots. We were not anti-gay or any of that. We just loved everyone and thought everyone was equal. And that's just the way of growing up. And I think the real tragedy here is, and I'm just going to say it, the Trump years really opened the door for racism and the closet, haters to come out and have their voices heard that really don't need to be heard. They don't serve a purpose, and it's unfortunate.
No, absolutely. Again, we got into this the last time, and I appreciate your outspokenness when you're doing like an interview. But like I say, it seems to me you've approached your songwriting about such things in more of a storytelling and in an artful vein, and that seems purposeful. And like I was just saying, maybe an extension of some of the stuff that the Replacements were doing, certainly around this era. Certainly, like Androgynous is a great example. Thanks for bringing that up. But the songs I mentioned on Tim, I think, are kind of doing that same sort of work. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, our purpose here as writers, and this isn't lost on Paul, I'm sure, even today. Yeah. We're the messengers of what we're seeing in the world. We're the messengers that, have a voice where we got a record company that's going to put out our record, and, what you say in those songs, people are going to hear in a mass way, as opposed to just you and I sitting in a bar somewhere having a chat. Yeah. So, as messengers, and Bob Dylan did this great. He was a messenger for the times, very great at that. Other writers out there too that were able to do that, but as messengers, it's kind of our job in a way. It's kind of what people rely on us to hear what's going on in places like New York City when you live in Bohunk, Iowa.
Yeah.
It's like some people don't get to travel like we do, and so to hear some of the things in our songs gets their imagination, and that's a great thing to be able to do that.
So anyway, this is some sort of Minnesota thing. It's like you, Bob Dylan, you know how to deal with this stuff. What's going on?
Well, I think any writer out there does that. Anyone that's of note. Yeah. Or not even. I mean, you're creating your art from what you're seeing in the world and what's going on around you. Yeah. I mean, that's basically it. Yeah. How you articulate that to the masses is where the art form, comes in.
I just want to say, as a fan, I appreciate the tact you take, I guess, like the way of telling a story in an emotional and an effective way without, hammering people over the head. I mean, that is an art form. And it seems to me you've come from you've had really great mentors, and you've picked up on what they're laying down, I suppose, in your own work.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I want to revisit Tim for a moment. I appreciate the context you provided about what it was actually like to make the record. We are all, some of us, really celebrating this Let It Bleed remix. And I understand I don't know if you know this, Tommy, I had Bob Mayer, Jason Jones, and Ed Stasium on the show, and we talked extensively about this process. And I asked them about your involvement and Paul's. And also, to be frank, I did reach out to Darren Hill about talking to Paul, and apparently Paul is retired. Completely retired from all interviews. Actually, before we get to Tim, what do you make of that? What's your insight into Paul just saying, I'm done, I'm not participating?
To each his own. I think he's fine doing what he does. He does, he got out of the race, and that's, I get it, got tired of it, did what he wanted to do with it, and that's it. Yeah. Good enough.
Do you correspond much at all, you two?
I ain't talked to him in a probably a couple years now, but that's not abnormal for us. We've gone years without talking before.
I see.
I still consider him a brother, and that's not like any loss of love or anything like that per se. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. So back to my original question. What was your role in, I guess, assessing what was done for these Let It Bleed, for the Let It Bleed remix and remastering and all that stuff? How did you participate?
I didn't. I sat on the sidelines. I mean, Bob does a great job of putting these box sets together, and we pretty much, I trust what he does for the most part, and take a back seat to that. And we've let him kind of run with this stuff. As he's done a good job with it, and he's there to tell a good story, and that's really where it's at. There's some stuff I've had to get involved with where that was like a little bit too much, but that's because they're just they're trying to do the right thing and trying to get the most out of it.
So you mentioned earlier that some of the outtakes and alternate versions and unfinished stuff is cringeworthy. The narrative around Tim in particular was about the way it was recorded, the way it was mixed by Tommy Ramone. First of all, what's your perspective on all that stuff, the mythology around Tim?
There were 2 records that the Replacements made that I never thought sounded very good. Tim was one, and Don't Tell a Soul was the other one. Mm-hmm. And they both did not sound good because of trying to appease what we thought the record company was asking. And when we hired Tommy early, we thought he came with Ed Stasium. As it turned out, Ed Stasium's schedule did not comply with our needs. And so Tommy was kind of forced to mix the record. Tommy, who was trying to appease the record company because he was looking to get more work out of it, as you would, it was what he was into and doing. He was a studio guy at that point. Had to mix it. And, I think he would be the first one to tell you his ears weren't great because he mixed the whole thing on headphones. And, it sounds great now. I'm glad that Ed Stasium, if it hadn't been for Ed Stasium remixing it, we wouldn't have remixed it. We wouldn't have had it done. But because Ed had done so many records with Tommy, it made sense because he was supposed to have been there in the first place. Yeah.
In the liner notes that Bob Mayer wrote for this, there's a quote from Tommy Ramone where he refutes the notion that he mixed this via headphones. Did you witness him mixing it this way? What's the deal there?
Well, a lot of the sounds he got with headphones on. My recollections of walking into the studio when stuff was going down, Tommy always had headphones on.
Yeah. Okay.
Whether he mixed it with headphones or not, I guess I wasn't there when he was mixing, because I think he mixed it in New York, if I recall. But,
yeah,
obviously it didn't sound very good. It sounds way different than it sounded when we were making it, and Ed Stasium corrected that.
So you weren't involved in the project per se, but you have listened to Ed's remix. Is that fair?
Yes, correct.
Right. Okay. And so for me, and I talked about this with those guys, and people online made fun of me because I said some of the stuff he unearthed, unburied, and brought up into the mix really got to me emotionally. Like some of it brought me to tears. Just hearing, Paul humming la la la's or whatever, like it really got to me. What was it like for you to first hear this remix? Was it emotional? Was it, was it triumphant? Like we finally got it. Can you describe your kind of visceral reaction to hearing it?
I was just glad that it sounded good. It had always been sort of in my craw that, man, great songs just mixed horribly. And, that was also a time when they were starting to make things like digital reverbs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Crap that you wouldn't even use today, right. Even though, that was kind of the, new technology back then, stuff was terrible. It sounded, and you can hear it on that record. So I'm glad that, Ed was able to take the actual musicality that we fucking recorded and turn it into, the right record.
Yeah.
Right sounding record.
So as you are, asked to kind of revisit this stuff you did as a kid, whether it's having fun or Tim or anything else, because I think they hinted that there might be more sets coming if they can pull it off. For Let It Bleed, for example, is celebrating an anniversary. Let It Be. I got confused by your own title copying. Let It Be.
By the way, I was never backing that Let It Bleed edition. I never liked that. But I was too late to voice that.
What would you have given it a different title?
Would have come up with something different than that. Okay. I don't know what, but I just thought that was crap.
Okay, well, I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, there's more stuff maybe coming, and you are sometimes asked to revisit this stuff. Does revisiting your youth and the work you did influence what you're doing now in any regard? Sometimes this
not really.
No, not at all.
Not really.
No.
Nah. I'm gonna. I watch these things. These are done for the fans, and to have someone like Bob Muir kind of take the helm and do that, being a fan and stuff like that, it's cool. I get why they're there. They serve a purpose. It helps. It keeps us relevant. Yeah. I mean, we're strangely still relevant 40 years later, and there's something to that. And it's not just Bob Muir and these box sets. We've remained somewhat relevant in the annals of sort of the independent music, or whatever you want to call the genre. Yeah. I don't even want to give it a name, to be honest with you, but we're still relevant, and that's just, I think, because of the work we did.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, it's great. When you hear something like Having Fun or anything else that is unearthed, besides it being cringeworthy, are you ever pleasantly surprised or shocked, like, oh, I have no memory of even doing this? Does that happen?
Sure, once in a while.
Yeah,
I don't remember anything about this record that did that to me, but Where's My Home? I always thought that should have made the record, but we did it with Alex Chilton when he was kind of in the producer seat, and we didn't quite get the take when Tommy Early was in the seat. We didn't get the good take with him in it, so that's why I didn't make it in the record. And that's as far as I can recall, anyway.
So as we look to some of the remaining albums that might be treated to these kinds of sets, is there something you're excited, like in your memory banks, is there something coming that we might that you're particularly excited about that we haven't heard before, kind of thing?
Not really. I don't know what else there could be done, but again, I'm not really thinking about it.
Yeah, I gather that. No, listen, Tommy, I appreciate you even indulging in these conversations about your old band. I just want to say that. And I also want to say that this new stuff you're working on is really fantastic, this Cowboys in the Campfire stuff. It sounds like you're already working on songs, and you've got this Canadian tour. Any other sort of plans for that band or anything else you're working on that you can tell us about? I'm always working on something, one thing or the other, and I think at the moment, we're going to do some more recording for Cowboys in the Campfire. We're going to do some stuff, when I get back in October, and see where it takes us. There's a line here in the biographical information that echoes what you just said, but the follow-up sentence is, Stinson still has other endeavors in mind. I'm sorry, this other endeavors in mind has me intrigued. Is there anything you can tell us about?
I'm all over the place musically, and I'm lucky enough to have been able to do this for so long and still actually be able to eke out a bit of a living at it and do what I want. I can follow my creative flow wherever it takes me, and that's really something. It's really something to behold, and I cherish it. It's fun. I can wake up and I can write anything I want, and when I feel like I've got something good, I'll put it out.
All right. Well, I just want to say on behalf of your fans, we're all very appreciative of this. So thank you for working hard and getting out on the road. If people want to learn more about your work and your upcoming tour dates in Canada and anywhere else, where should they go on the internet?
You can go to the interwebs and find TommyStinson.com and find everything that's going on in the immediate future.
Yeah. Canada, you like Canada? You like touring Canada?
I like Canada. Heck yeah. Let me snag me a leg.
No, it's great. I'm glad you're coming. It's nice when people make time to come up here. It's not everyone does it all the time these days.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this run. It'll be fun to play some places I haven't played before or places I haven't played in a long time. So
yeah, nice.
Good.
Now, if we can go out on a song from either the Tim box set or this record, Wronger, can you choose one for us and maybe tell us why it came to mind?
Wow, that's a good one. Well, here we go again. Basically sums up what I'm about to embark on. It's all about. It's the same Same rigmarole, different song. Here I go. I'm just, heading out. I'm going to go play some songs after I wrote some songs. And when I come home from that, I'm going to come home and record and write some more songs. And I'm going to go out and play some more songs in front of people. It's kind of just all I do is I write, I play, and I have fun with this. And again, I'm very lucky to still be able to get to do this. So that song pretty much sums it all up.
Kind of a meta song, I suppose, in terms of what you do. Do you often write on the ukulele?
Yeah. I have a collection of them, strangely. I went to Hawaii once for a vacation, and I came back with one, and I got kind of hooked on them. They're funny little instruments.
And this is part of the live show as well, right? You playing ukulele?
Not quite. No. They don't translate live so much for me.
Okay, all right.
It's as of yet. I maybe when I grow up a little bit.
Well, it sounds lovely on this song, so let's hear it now. This is Here We Go Again by Tommy Stinson's Cowboys and the Campfire from their new album, Wronger. Tommy, it's always an honor and a pleasure to get to chat with you. I hope you enjoyed yourself, and I wish you the best luck in the future, and I hope we talk again soon.
Thank you so much, man. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So stir, well, baby, step aside. I'm jumping off this roller coaster. Let's find out where the exits are before we get any closer. Here we go again. Throw out your rusty pen to your old gun monster. You've been riding long enough. You could have had it reupholstered. Get yourself a new cool gun. I mean, it might stick a little longer. 'Cause here we go again. Here we go again. Label you a failure as a label it. Dragged off to jail. Don't worry how bad it is till no one comes. Posters in the men's John. Your reign won't last forever unless they sing your stupid song. Forget about buffoonery, copyrights in perpetuity. Here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again.
Well, it kind of happened last minute in its own way, and I've been all hopped up on replacement stuff. For those of you who heard the episode with Bob Mayer, Jason Jones, and Ed Stasium, you know that I've been all in on this new limited edition Let It Bleed thing, the Tim box set. Anyways, very nice to reconnect with Tommy, have him back on the show. Love to speak with Tommy Stinson, very lovely guy, and I'd like to thank him for being on this, the 804th episode of Creative Control, which is part of the Entertainment One podcast network and is available just about wherever you get your podcasts. If you can't find an episode you've heard about and you're looking for it, or if you want to learn more about me and sign up for my monthly newsletter, please visit vishkhanna.com and like Creative Control on Facebook or follow the show and me on social media, various things. I am on Twitter. The show is on Twitter at Vish Creative, and you can follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Vishkhanna. You can also find me on Blue Sky and Mastodon? Yeah, I'm on Mastodon. Threads? TikTok, sort of. I'm on a bunch of stuff. The show has a YouTube channel as well, which some people use to access the episodes. Anyway, you'll figure it out. There's a link in the show description. Just click on that and you can follow me and follow the show wherever you like. I did my best to include as many options as possible. Also, please support this show on our Patreon at patreon.com/Creative Control. That's where you can make a monthly flexible donation to support all the work that goes into making this show every week. $6 American or more a month grants you access to some exclusive content. You get the episodes a little bit earlier than everybody else and all sorts of other perks. So we also still have some t-shirts that I can provide to you as a show of gratitude. And you can learn more about all of these things, again, at patreon.com/Creative Control. Thank you so much for donating any amount you can on a monthly basis. It means a lot. Thanks again to the wonderful Alberta record retailer Blackbird Music. They have bricks and mortar locations in Alberta and Calgary, but you can learn more about them and order records directly, so they get shipped to your house at blackbird.ca. Also want to thank Pizza Trocadero, The Bookshelf, and Planet Bean Coffee in Guelph, and Granddad's Donuts in Hamilton. Both of those cities, Guelph and Hamilton, in Ontario, Canada, and they offer in-kind support for this show, so thanks to all of them. Thanks to Jim Guthrie as well. Lends me some music for this show. You can learn more about Jim at jimguthrie.org. And last but not least, thank you for listening to this episode with Tommy Stinson. Go see Tommy live in Canada and beyond. Very busy guy, and please subscribe to this show or follow it and tell your friends about the Creative Control, the podcast. Maybe that'll help spread the word, and otherwise, take care of yourselves, be nice to each other. I'll talk to you very soon. Bye for now.